Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. On one side, the situation owing to the unabated brutality by Israeli regime is worsening the situation in Gaza, with the Gaza's health ministry saying 39,929 people have been killed, while 92,240 have been wounded since 7th of October, since Israel unleashed that brutality on the innocent people in Gaza. On the other hand, the threat of this particular conflict in the Middle Eastern region of expanding into the wider region is increasing in the wake of Hamas's leader Ismail Haniyeh's assassination in Iran. Now the White House is saying that the US has determined that Iran and its regional proxies may attack Israel as soon as this week, and the reprisal may include a significant set of attacks. Also, there is a statement by Pentagon saying US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has reiterated the US commitment to take every possible step to defend Israel. He has also ordered the deployment of a guided missile submarine to the Middle East, and has also ordered the dispatching a second aircraft carrier strike group in the Middle Eastern region also. We have also seen French President, the German Chancellor and the Prime Minister of the UK in a joint statement have called on Iran to refrain from attacks that would further escalate the regional tensions. In response to this particular statement, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani has said, let me quote him, Iran has a recognized right to defend its national sovereignty and create deterrence against Israel, and doesn't seek permission from anyone on the matter. Such excessive demands lack political logic and are completely contrary to the principles and rules of international law. Also, it is expected the further round of negotiations for a ceasefire deal as to ending the conflict in Gaza is expected on Thursday. That would be brokered by Egypt and Qatar. But there is a statement by the Palestinian resistance group Hamas, which is unwilling to participate in this particular round of negotiations, saying no more negotiations, but implementation on the agreed points during the last round of negotiations. Also, there is a statement that has been made before the parliamentary committee by Israel's defense minister, making the parliamentary committee know about the two choices before him and Israel's establishment. The first one is to reach a ceasefire deal and end the conflict in Gaza. And instead of that particular second option of escalating the war, to which there is a response by Israeli Prime Minister, will also be taking that up for analysis in today's show. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests who are joining us in the studio. Mr. Saeed Khalid is former ambassador. Mr. Khalid, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Zia Ul Haque Shamsi, senior analyst. Dr. Shamsi, thank you very much for your time. Also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are joined by Dr. Ahmed Zaki, is Middle East expert. Dr. Zaki, thank you very much for your time. Also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Khalid, let's talk about this particular choice that has been presented by the Israeli defense minister to the parliamentary committee. And he says that he, as the defense minister and the Israeli establishment, support that first option of reaching a ceasefire deal and ending the conflict rather than escalating the war. How do you look at this particular statement? It is quite contradictory to what Prime Minister Netanyahu had been saying.
This, it sort of shows that there is no unanimity among the Israeli leaders on what steps to take to, in their own interpretations, different parties, how to some how to de-escalate, to others how to escalate. This is a very, the thing is very worrying, because from the beginning, Netanyahu has been on an aggressive path, as if he was trying to prove to the ultra right that he can do more than them, in damaging the Palestinian people, killing them, because he depends on their support. He depends on the ultra right support for his coalition, and these are the people who have even more, audacious, or I would say totally unreasonable demands. So these are the internal dynamics of Israel, where there is the, as you said, the defense minister who is suggesting to de-escalate, and the prime minister who always is taking a hawkish line, and the ultra right, which is also egging him on to be on the aggressive. And how, it baffles the mind how the big powers and the big power, how they are not able to restrain these people.
Okay, I'll come to that particular point of what is the responsibility of the major powers in restraining Israel from carrying out its brutality. Now, when we talk about these two statements, when we talk about the comparison of these two statements, this particular choice by the defense minister of de-escalating the situation and reaching a ceasefire deal, in sheer contradiction to what Prime Minister Netanyahu has been saying, then Prime Minister Netanyahu hit back on the defense minister, saying that he has got anti-Israeli narrative and is being harmful towards reaching a ceasefire deal. How do you look at that?
I mean, this just shows that now fissures have developed, and they are out in the open. They cannot anymore hide them, because the situation is totally dramatic, and they are getting daily calls from. And you see what's happening on the roads of the Western countries, on the campuses in the United States. The protest is growing stronger, and it seems as if Israel has lost morally, and it is losing support. Every day it is losing support, and it's good that if this conflict, their positions, they are out in the open. One only hopes that their masters can do something at this stage.
Right, Dr. Shamsi, when we talk about this particular choice of the defense minister and the support from his establishment to this particular first choice of de-escalating the situation, reaching a ceasefire deal, do you think that is anti-Israel as per Netanyahu?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. No, I don't think so. I think it's just showpiecing and showcasing that to the US Parliament or the parliamentary committee, wherever he presented these ideas, and he was immediately taken to task by the Prime Minister. It is just distracting the people, especially the Western world, as the Excellency said, that the protests are growing. But that is not my point where I would like to come. Why should the Western world protest? Where is the Muslim Ummah, if there is any? Why there are no demonstrations in the streets of Riyadh, Islamabad, Dhaka, and Jakarta, and Kuala Lumpur, and so many 56 Islamic countries? Why do we always depend that there would be a large demonstrations in Manhattan and Chicago and LA and London and Paris? Why? So that is what is
Shamsi,
more summing.
there have been a number of instances where there have been demonstrations as far as the Muslim countries is concerned, but the point is not limited to the demonstrations by the public. What about what would it take? The real question is, despite a lot of demonstrations, even those demonstrations or protests happening on such a massive scale in the Western countries also, the point is, what would it take? the world, the international community, despite those injunctions by the International Court of Justice also, a number of resolutions at the UN Security Council regarding the matter. What would it take to stop Israel from carrying out its brutalities? And by looking at this statement, what I wanted was your analysis regarding the comparison when presumably if we consider what the Israeli defense minister is saying, that the first choice is to de-escalate the situation. And the right away, the Israeli prime minister hits back. So when he makes a choice, presumably that his choice is right, so is it anti-Israel? Or that choice also goes in the favor of Israeli people also?
Not at all. As I said, it is distracting. There are fissures within the administration, there is no doubt about it, and that has been always like that. But Israel, look at the pattern. They don't care. They don't care about UN resolutions. They don't care about public opinion, their own public opinion. There have been a lot of demonstrations in Tel Aviv also. They don't care. They don't care for Western world's public demonstrations. They don't care about Ummah's public demonstrations. They do not care. Israel understands only one language, and that is, you have to hit back. I am not a proponent of war, because my definition of war is waste of available resources.
Oh, so if Israel doesn't care about any resolutions or any sort of injunctions by the International Court of Justice, the only solution is to hit back, yes. Right? So there is a statement by the Iranian President, Masoud Pezeshkian, let me quote that the point of view of Islamic Republic of Iran, war in any part of the world is not in the interest of any country, emphasizing that a punitive response to an aggressor is a legal right of the states and a way to stop crime and aggression. That is exactly what you are saying, in some other words. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I think. I mean, I always call these two states, Israel and India, inherently criminal states. They are ICS. Unless you hit back and you respond in the same coin, they will not stop.
Okay, so
this is what we have done in the past.
In the same coin. There is an assessment by the White House which says this particular a significant set of attacks on the part of Iranians may happen as soon as within this particular week. And in light of that particular thing, we have seen those decisions made by the defense chief of the US also making an order for the deployment of a second aircraft carrier strike group and guided missile submarine over there. So don't you see the situation escalating towards a very dangerous point?
It has already escalated. Jawad, in one of your program, I think some 6 months back, I said that we are already at World War 2.5. At least 40% of world's population and people at this time are facing wars and conflicts everywhere in all regions, and more so in the Middle East. The issue with Israel is that it first deters you and deters the entire Ummah, all regimes, that if you interfere into my business, then you would end up losing your power in your own country. And what happens is that entire Muslim Ummah, the regimes of Muslim Ummah, not the public, they immediately retract from their policy statements or from their principal stands. Look at the statement of OIC. I mean, these statements one can issue from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of every country.
Well, at the end of the day, that is the demand which has categorically been made by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation during the recently held extraordinary meeting. But at the end of the day, isn't it the responsibility when it comes to the United Nations and its that organ which is actually mandated to ensure global peace and security, the United Nations Security Council?
But it is toothless, spineless. Why? Because it is the supreme interest of the United States to defend Israel. It is one of their national interests. So as you said, that they've already deployed additional forces in the region, isn't it? What I am suggesting is that if something happens within the bounds of Israel and Palestine, that is happening since last 7th October, okay, and the word is just crying actually, not been able to stop. However, when Israel extends the boundaries all by itself, like going and carrying out an intelligence-based operation in Iran, Iran has a right to retaliate.
Okay, Iran,
and it must retaliate.
That is exactly what the statement by Mr. Nasser Kanani
Absolutely.
talks about, that
Absolutely.
Iran's national sovereignty was breached.
Yes.
Because of that assassination of
Yes.
Ismail Haniyeh.
Yes.
Now, Iran has the inherent and recognized right to create deterrence against
Absolutely.
Israel, and it doesn't seek any sort of a permission
Absolutely.
from anyone.
Absolutely. My point
So
is that it
keeping
is
that,
delaying it.
Keeping that in view, that recognized a right to defend itself and created deterrence against a state which is perpetrating terrorism with impunity. In that particular sort of a scenario, ideally what the international norms and traditions, or what the UN Charter actually talks about the responsibility of the major powers, including the US, who is saying that we will take every step to defend Israel in case Iran retaliates.
Look, there is a difference between the two things. One is that a state has a right to defend itself. That's what Israel says. All its actions are in defense of Israel, isn't it? US has 100% support of the Israelis because it is in their national interest that they will defend Israel. Okay? Come to Iran now. Iran also has a sovereign right to retaliate if its sovereignty is been breached, isn't it? But deterrence has to be credible. If Iran, like you remember the days of Saddam Hussein, he would keep on saying the mother of all battles is starting, this. No, deterrence has to be credible. Just look back in February 2019 when Prime Minister of Pakistan had said that we will not think, we will act. And we acted.
Right.
And the India sat quiet. So, if Iran keeps on saying, keep on issuing the warning and does not do anything, it will go waste.
We've seen the manifestation of Iran hitting back or trying to hit back, right? I'll come back to you. Let me bring in another participant. Dr. Ahmed Zaki is Middle East expert. Dr. Zaki, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. First of all, your take regarding this particular statement of the first choice by the Israeli Defense Minister of de-escalating the situation instead of escalating the war. And then the Prime Minister Netanyahu hitting back right away, saying that his narrative is anti-Israel. What's your understanding?
Thank you for having me. I was enjoying listening to the other participants. As you know that it's an Israeli strategic now, because they are facing a lot of pressure from the Western countries, particularly from America, that it's the American cost. If Iran attacks, it's not the Israel who's defending themselves by themselves. It's the American Navy armies who are available in Mediterranean Sea, and also the American bases in Iraq to take down any Iranian attack from Iran, whether it's a missile or whether it's a guided missile, and it's cost us a lot to Americans, and that is also going to attract the attention of the other. It's also going to attract the other militants in Iraq to also stand with Iran and attack military bases in Iraq. And we have seen that already. And now it's the blood of Americans was going to be shed. That's the pressure that they are feeling from the America. On the other hand, the Israeli government is just a coalition government. It's not a majority government. And the majority now, they are the conservative part of the Israeli society. And if he did not keep them, abusing them, it will be loss of his regime, and he's going to face a court. And that is the whole game he's afraid to face.
Okay, Dr. Zaki, when we talk about this particular assessment that has been made by the White House that the Iranian reprisal may happen as soon as within this particular week, and it could be a significant set of attacks, how do you look at that? How credible that is? How much is there a likelihood of such a reprisal on the Iranians within this particular week?
Iranians will retaliate, that's for no doubt, because it's in the history that when Americans killed a commander of the Middle East commander of Iran, they retaliated from Iran, directly attacking the bases of America in Iraq. And that is the significant risk that the Iran have already taken from their side. But it should have to be taken serious for that. Israel did the same. They attacked the consulate of Iran in Baghdad, in Syria, and they retaliated by attacking 300 missiles into territory of Israel. And now, when they are saying we will retaliate, it's credible, it's serious, and it's true. It will happen. How much scale it will happen, we will not know yet. But definitely it will happen, and it will harm Israel.
When it will happen, and Iran seems determined to carry out that particular retaliation, so we have also seen the deployment of reinforcements into the Middle Eastern region on the part of the US, with its defense chief Lloyd Austin reiterating its commitment to defend Israel no matter what. So once Iran resorts to that retaliation, then what could be the next step when it comes to the Israelis and the US?
When it came to retaliation of Iran is assessing all this particular period, which they are saying we are going to retaliate, they are analyzing the scale of the retaliation and how much impact it will have. Like the last one, they have done that. They have already taken the campaign in diplomatic pressure to Israel. They took the case into the UN Security Council. Americans vetoed that case. Nobody have criticized it, particularly in the Western allies of Israel. And it was a two international rules violation. Now, if the international law is not going to take care of the state have the right to defend themselves. And that is the primary right that Iran is trying to protect their independence, number one. Number two, Iran, on the other hand, if they attack to Israel in a scale that can affect even their allies, Israeli allies, it might spread the war. But that's where they are calculating their retaliation. It should have to be limited, it should have to be effective, and it should have to harm only Israel and Israeli interests in the Middle East. But if they affect the other fronts like American, it will affect
please go ahead, finish your thought, please.
Okay, it will, if the retaliation of Iran affect the Israeli friends who are trying to defend Israel, and that will spread the war, that will effectively, that's what Israeli Prime Minister wants. The war should have to spread, American troops should have to involve, European troops should have to involve, and the NATO should have to stand for Israel. That is what they are trying to achieve. And that's the only thing that Israel is trying to achieve. And if they allow to make that maximum scale of war, that will be for the benefit of Israel, not for the benefit of Iran.
So Dr. Zaki, what is more important at this particular point in time when we see the conflict, the threat of it expanding into a wider region is there? Why is it more important for Iran to retaliate right away, or having the strategic patience at this particular point in time? Could that give more dividend to Iran at this particular point in time, or retaliating right away to establish that it has the right to defend is more important?
As Dr. Zia Ul Haque said earlier in our discussion, that the deterrence should have to be real, not by issuing a warning. And Israel, they tried to spread the war, it should have to get the punishment from the Iran. And Iran should have to limit their response so that it should not spread and give Israeli the card which they want to spread the war. So it should have to be minimal, it should have to be effective, and it should have to be only and only limited to Israel and Israeli military bases or maybe Israeli interest. So in that particular response, it will not spread. The Western countries have no justification to stand with Israel and attack Iran. On the other hand, if they leave for only diplomatic response, that will weaken their position in the Middle East, number one, because it's not Iran who involved the war by themselves. It's Israel who attacked their own land. They killed their guests, their diplomatic guests in their country. That's violation of, number one, a diplomatic, and number two, it's an international crime that they transformed the war from all the way Gaza to Tehran. So that is the calling for war. So don't give the card, but you should have to also give a credible response that whenever they try again, they should have to think 1,000 times before they respond.
Right, Dr. Ahmed Zaki joining us on the phone line, Middle East expert. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Khalid, when we talk about this deterrence, it should be minimum effective as per Dr. Zaki, and it should be directed only towards Israel. Even if Iran has calculated this sort of retaliation towards Israel with minimum, the scale of it minimum and being more effective. So what's the point of the US sending in reinforcement to the Middle East?
I will begin with an important development, which is that on Algeria's request, the UN Security Council is meeting today, later today, to consider the latest Israeli aggression in Gaza. And I think this is going to be an important meeting. Why? Because the situation is such. Now coming to Iran, I think Iran gave a measured response to General Soleimani's killing, and most probably will give a measured response to Ismail Haniyeh's killing. I agree with Ahmed Zaki that Iran would not want to escalate. Israel may want to escalate, and it is for the Americans to sort of manage the situation in a way. Although if you go back a little in history, in the last 10, 20, 30 years, Syria has been destroyed, Libya has been destroyed, Iraq totally destroyed, and it was one of their dreams to destroy Iran. And this is what is so important here for Iran, not to fall into that.
So does that call for a strategic patience at this particular point in time and not retaliate right away if Israel wants to prolong and escalate the war?
I would repeat the same words, that Iran will give a measured response.
So there is no guarantee there would be a measured response in return from the US, Israel or the other allies if Iran retaliates right away?
They will analyze then, because what happened after General Soleimani's death? Iran did retaliate, but things did not escalate. So each side has to sort of, you review as the situation develops. Israel wants to escalate, but this is an election year in America. I don't think the Americans have the time to escalate wars at this moment. So, but I'll come back to the Security Council meeting, that the focus is going to be on Israel today. Why Israel attacked this school? Is Israel trying to distract from the Iranian, affair, Iranian matter, Iranian response, and create a new situation so that everybody has to deal with this situation now? But I don't think this is going to favor. In the last Security Council meeting, a resolution for ceasefire was passed, and I think something similar can be expected.
So,
this time also.
but what's the use of such type of resolutions or such type of meetings on ground practically?
Yes. What I can say is that pressure is increasing. Pressure is mounting on Israel. At the same time, there have been the demonstrations within Israel calling upon the government to do something, to go for a ceasefire, to get the people back, people who have been, kidnapped. So pressure is increasing from all sides.
Right. Dr. Shamsi, you already talked of the only solution to stop Israel was to hitting back. Now, when we talk about if Iran retaliates, the likelihood of it, which is quite increased at this particular point in time. So what in return, with these reinforcements deployed by the US to defend Israel, what could be the possible reaction after Iran retaliates?
Actually, Jawad, there are only two things in international affairs which each state has depending on what is the strength or capability of the state. One is diplomacy, the other is deterrence. Diplomacy is not working at this time. There are efforts, like Excellency said, there is a meeting today, but it has not been working. So the other thing remains is deterrence. The Gazans or the Palestinians do not have that kind of capability. Iran has. Tooth for tooth, eye for eye. Iran has to retaliate, and obviously a measured response to hurt the Israeli interest, as Dr. Zaki said, only. Because it's very easy to hurt American interests in the region, because there are too many American interests in the region. But that is not the objective of Iran. You have to act against the initiator, not the collaborators, because collaborators at this time are very strong and they want escalation, which Iran would not want. Why Iran at this time? Because in my assessment since last 2 years, October 22, I am saying that Iran will go nuclear by March 25. They will have enough enriched uranium by March 25 to either carry out an experiment or just declare themselves as a nuclear weapon state. Israel, it is incumbent upon Israel at this time to find a reason or a cause to physically
Drag Iran into it?
Drag Iran into it and then launch strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities to knock them out before Iran goes nuclear.
So that brings us to questions. So don't Iranians understand or assess this type of situation, that they're being
much.
dragged by Israelis into the war?
No. Even if they've been dragged, Iran must, in order to ensure credibility of its deterrence, must retaliate in kind against a suitable target. Okay? Because they have to show it to the Israelis that they will not go unattended, number one. They have to show it to the Western world that they mean business. They have to carry their own people behind them, isn't it? Because the Iranians, it's a very ancient civilization, it's a very proud civilization, and it cannot let go its sovereign right of defending itself without acting against them, because they have interest in the region. They have one of the most powerful nation in the entire
What
Middle
could be the possible outcomes if Iran doesn't retaliate straight away and it exhibits strategic patience at this particular point in time, perhaps to retaliate some other time in future?
That will lessen the credibility of their deterrence, in my opinion. Deterrence and retaliation has to be, number one, measured, and number two, in time, because timing is very important. If you release the pressure at this time from Israel, the military pressure, then they will further get emboldened, because the diplomacy is, although not effective, but it is working, because diplomacy has to work 24/7, and something will come out with this.
So what do you
UNSC
expect
meeting.
from this particular UN Security Council meeting on the request of Algeria? I mean, if
I
it
think
comes
there
up
will
with
be more
any sort of a
pressure.
resolution,
No,
I mean,
no,
what could
I
be
fully understand. I fully
what could be
understand
the
that
manifestation on
that Israel
practical
does not,
lines?
Israel does not accept these resolutions. I fully understand that. But that does not mean that we will start war. We don't want war. But measured response to an aggression is what will ensure the deterrence of Iran as a
Right.
state. And
Right.
that is necessary actually,
Right.
in my opinion.
Right. Mr. Khalid, there's been a joint statement by the French President, German Chancellor and British Prime Minister also calling on Iran to refrain from attacking Israel that might increase the regional tensions. Let me quote that one excerpt from that statement. We call on Iran and its allies to refrain from attacks that would further escalate regional tensions and jeopardize the opportunity to agree a ceasefire and release of hostages. I mean, how do you look at the role that is being currently played by these three Western powers? And there has been a response by Mr. Nasser Kanani also regarding that, he says such excessive demands lack political logic and are completely contrary to the principles and rules of international law.
You know, this statement, it doesn't really, it's not going to impress anyone. I don't know what the British and the Germans, they thought it will bring what kind of benefit. I would say this is just a kind of verbal, rhetoric. It's not, this is not going to have much effect. What is going to have effect? Number one, the Israeli and American alert for Iran's retaliation is at the highest level right now. And they're even giving out information that it could be on this day or that day or that day. Iran is watching. Iran may give them a few more days, may wait till the guard comes down a little bit, till the level of alert, comes down a little bit, and then retaliate, attack, whatever targets it has chosen. But let us also not forget that the negotiations on ceasefire are continuing.
So in case, if that ceasefire deal is reached during the negotiations on Thursday, for which the Palestinian resistance group Hamas has not showed any sort of willingness, because it says that no further round of negotiations, we should implement what was agreed in the last round of negotiations.
Well, that is a position. I mean,
okay, so what if a ceasefire deal is reached?
They have
would it reduce the chances of Iran retaliating right away?
They are not directly connected. I think Iran has its own calculus it will do. But I just drew attention that despite all the warmongering, despite all that is happening, all the violence and killing, the negotiations are going on. They have not been suspended.
Mr. Saeed Khalid, former ambassador, thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Zia Ul Haque Shamsi, senior analyst, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.